Okay, we are ready to go. Everybody can hear me? Fantastic. Everybody awake? Fantastic. Okay, good. Right, I hope you find this an enjoyable presentation. So, as I said, as I was introduced very gracefully by Louise, I am from the World Youth Student and Educational Travel Confederation. We're based in the Netherlands, and we are the global industry body for youth travel. This is a picture of our beautiful office on the Keizersgracht in Amsterdam. You're very welcome to come and visit us. As I said, we are the global industry body for the youth travel industry. And I'm just going to give you a presentation today about a very important sector, because it's a sector that brings together all of the subjects that we've been talking about today. I've been really interested to listen to what the panelists and the presenters have had to say about the future of the industry, about the people who are going to make that future, and so I felt it was important to look at a sector that is pushing the development of this sector in the direction of the future now. And so I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what we do some shameless promotion, which is what you always get when you get a presenter that's come from a long way away and close to home too. We're going to look at what youth travel is, because I think it's important to open our minds and think about what this sector really means for us at the moment. We're going to take an overview of the sector, and then the bulk of my presentation actually is going to be on our young consumer travel research, a very important study which we've completed this year, and a publication that's going to come out within the next month or so. And then look at what next, which I think is always a good place to end. So first of all, just to overlook at what we do. Well, we are a membership organisation. We bring together over 500 businesses and associations, and of course the destinations, who are interested in the youth, student and educational travel markets. Our members come from across 120 countries. We support them with opportunities to trade and network. Here you can see people taking their business appointments at our very famous conference, which I'm going to tell you a little about shortly. So first of all, there you get fantastic networking opportunities. This photo is from ITB, taken last month. It was a presentation given by Professor Greg Richards of Tilburg University, looking at, and that was the first ever presentation of the New Horizons data that I'm going to share with you. You're very lucky people, because this is only the third presentation that has been made of this data, which is the biggest global study of young consumer travel. And we're also a lobbying organisation, so we lobby important international organisations interested in tourism, like the World Tourism Organisation, like UNESCO, and we're forming very strong alliances, I'm pleased to say, with PATA as well, because together we all have a very strong voice to give to this industry. Youth travel is, well, the tourism sector in general, of course, is one whose interests and stakeholders are fragmented, and they're split up, often in very small businesses that find it difficult to articulate their interests and their motivations, and of course have a strong voice against other larger sectors of the economy, but we want to change that, and we want to lend our voice to the sector. So this is one of our other activities. And, as I said, we organise the world's essential youth travel trade event. And this year we're very excited. We're going to be in the Asia-Pacific region. We're coming to Sydney, and it's going to be from the 17th to the 20th of September. So if you work in youth travel, or you're interested in setting up a business in that area, or you want to learn more about the sector, I thoroughly recommend you come to that conference. It's just shortly after the PATA Travel Mart, and I'll be very glad to give you some more information about that later. So, before we talk about some of the more general trends in youth travel, I think it's very important to get a good idea of what this sector is all about. It's very important, I find. I say youth travel, and the first thing people say to me, backpacking. Oh, we don't have many backpackers here, or we don't like them, or they don't spend very much, do they? That's it's one of the first words that pops into people's mind when I say I work for an organisation that represents youth travel. Well, one of my first tasks is, of course, to change that perception. So, first of all, when we talk about age range, well, we say that it covers an age range of 18 to 35 years. But, as we're going to discover, you could also say that it is covering a much wider range, because you look at junior travel, you look at the fact that you now have children of 7 and 8 years old going to study and going to live with families in Britain and the United States. Well, that must be youth travel too. You look at the fact that people are continuing to travel in an older start, in a young way, until they get much older, looking for the same experiences, staying in the same places that young people traditionally stay in. And of course, you start to question, well, actually, youth travel is actually a pretty enormous sector. So, based upon the very conservative estimates, we say that it represents just over 20% of international arrivals, and for the reasons I just gave, that is growing. Now, that was a figure that was given in a 2008 publication between UNWTO and my organisation, and given the growth in tourism since then, undoubtedly that figure has risen. So we decided to give you a bit of a comparison and to show you the size of this industry. We decided to give you some calculations. So, world's top football clubs. Now we all know what enormous businesses those are. $7.1 billion. That's what they were valued at last year. Facebook's market value, $13.1 billion. McDonald's, that's huge. And the annual budget of Argentina, you can just about see the flag there, $105.8 billion. So, people say that youth travel is a niche market. Well, last year, youth travel generated $182 billion. It's an enormous industry. Now that we know its economic value, let's find out about how the market is structured, about how diverse youth travel really is today. So, it features 5 main sectors. Now, the data that I'm going to give you here is actually from some of our industry reviews, the executive summaries of which you can find online. Okay, first of all, language travel. I've been really interested to listen to, just when everybody put their hands up before and talked about whether they'd be interested in going to study abroad, or whether they'd be interested to perhaps go and improve their English abroad. It was fascinating to see the response. And of course, some of our panelists today speak English from Thailand, speak English better than I do, having been educated and having received an education in Britain and other English-speaking countries. Even when you think about the amount of travel language students that are coming to Britain to study, you can see the size of this industry. We estimate that over 2 million arrivals worldwide, and that was 3 years ago, 2010, were due to language travel. What's interesting is that Britain has always been the traditional big destination for language travel, but countries like Australia, Canada, New Zealand and the US, of course, are gaining market share in that area. And of course, it is a very highly, and those of you who've paid to study a language abroad will know that it's a highly profitable industry. Higher education is actually the most lucrative out of all of these sectors. Just think about the fact that some courses that you can do in the United States can cost up to $40,000. It's a booming industry, and in 2010 we estimated around 3.6 million international arrivals due to higher education. And this is the world, of course, you are in right now. What's interesting is that the English-speaking countries have always dominated this area, but of course we're seeing very strong competition from countries like the Netherlands, bringing in many students from overseas to study English-speaking courses there. Countries like Singapore, the government is pouring a huge amount of money into promoting its university system there. There's a lot of really interesting work being done in this area to attract students from abroad, and not only from the English-speaking countries. Then, of course, there's exchange work experience. They had a question just before, wasn't there, about who would like to go and work abroad. Well, this is interesting because you've got people from the emerging economies looking to gain work experience overseas and improve their language skills. Then, of course, you've got a big youth unemployment crisis in Europe and North America, which is proving to big opportunities for the agencies that dominate work in this sector. Now, it's not, as you all know, it's not always easy to organise work yourself. You can't just find a job overseas and just go. It's often important to have someone organise that for you. And that's why this sector is very much dominated by agencies that specialise in this particular area. And of course, you will often have to get a visa if you want to work in another country for a short space of time. And those visas are subject to agreements between governments, usually bilaterally agreed. Then there's volunteer travel. It's actually a very exciting week to be talking about this in Thailand because after a bit of research I discovered that the Tourism Authority of Thailand has launched a very exciting project called the Little Big it's the Little Big Project. It was actually launched very short while ago on April the 12th. It's a digital marketing campaign to promote tourism in the country, but voluntourism is what we call it. It's a project aimed at Thailand's major youth source markets to get to match young people from those countries, competition winners, with local Thai people who can work together and work on a project for a period of around 2 weeks. And I think it's a really exciting campaign because the material that is advertising this, of course, is generated by the people who participate. It's a bit like the Australian Best Jobs campaign that's been launched recently, and that's just recently completed. I think the winners are being announced just at the moment. So that's volunteering. And we're also seeing an increasing, whereas this was traditionally something that was government sponsored, we're also seeing the increased incidence of private operators in this area too. And then finally, probably the most visible area, if you go down Khao San Road or you go down the market or you even just walking around the streets of Bangkok, you'll see the leisure, adventure, backpacker travel. We've put them together. It's in terms of volume of travellers, it's the biggest. I can't put a figure on it because it really is so enormous because there's so many different ways of defining this. But we talk about leisure and we include in that the sports, extreme sports, and of course the traditional concept of the backpacker, the global nomad. Okay, I'm just going to highlight one other sector which kind of services the others, but I'm highlighting it because it's symbolic of the revolution that we've been talking and that Perry has particularly talked about earlier, and that's the area of accommodation. Youth accommodation we estimate to be a $34 billion industry, and it's undergoing a revolution around the world. Started in, I think, Europe and especially North America. But the reason why we can see it changing is because you've got increasing private equity investment. There's some really big players interested in this area, in the area of budget accommodation. I would say, and I'm going to come back to this point a bit later, that this is something that when we talk about the need for innovation, when we talk about the need for hotel chains to innovate in what they're offering and to offer a far more interesting product that is suited to what consumers are looking for, I would argue that this is certainly being driven from the budget end, if nothing else because they're taking market share from the people at the top. So this sector, of course, it's not just those segments that I've talked about. There are a huge other range of areas that feed off of the youth travel sector. Transportation, catering, media, PR, technology providers, all of those specialized in youth travel, without talking about, of course, the wider impact on the visitor economy when we talk about infrastructure, energy, medical, all of these other areas that the tourism sector feeds out to. So, why are we talking about this? Well, this is the whole reason why I've decided to focus on this area and share with this with you at the end of the day today, because today's young traveller, it doesn't take too much to work out, is of course going to be tomorrow's business traveller. They'll be travelling with their family and they'll be the senior traveller of tomorrow, and there's no coincidence therefore that when companies and destinations are looking for where the next big thing is in travel and tourism, they focus on youth travel. So I'm going to move into now the area which is going to occupy most of the presentation today. I hope you find it interesting. It's our young consumer travel research, and it's called New Horizons. It's part of our program of research that we do. We're a non-profit organisation, so we do this for the benefit of our members and for the community and the youth travel industry as a whole. So this is the third edition that we did. We've done it every 5 years since 2002, and we're really excited because we've got a much bigger geographic coverage. A couple of years ago, when we started 2002, we had just over 2,000 responses. Later, 2007, 8,500. And thanks to our members, and thanks to the reach of this industry, and also thanks to the fact we translated it into Spanish, we managed to get a grand total of 34,000 responses. So we really feel that this is a very reflective of the youth travel industry today. So, Let's look at who we asked. When we looked at the age profile, these are people who will click on a link and say, I'm happy to fill out a survey about youth travel. The bulk, of course, were between 20 and 22 years old. Look at the end bar, though. The fact that many people over the age of 30 thought that a survey about youth travel is applicable to them, far more than 5 years ago. So this, again, tells you more of, is an interesting fact in itself, showing you about the way that this sector is shifting. Let's look at those who filled out the survey who said that they had visited Thailand on their main trip. The age range, of course, 26 to 29 is more in line with the profile of the visitors who are coming here from the youth market. So in this section, just going to cover briefly how people define themselves, because this is very important. It kind of leaves aside the question of age for the moment. We talk about the reasons that they give for travelling, the motivations. The reasons for travelling, i.e. whether they're on holiday or they're studying, the motivations is what makes them get up and go. What is it that draws them to travel? And then, of course, why they chose the destination. Those who visited Thailand on their main trip, well, that's actually, if we look at how people define themselves, yes, we've got a lot of backpackers. It's interesting, the idea of people don't really want to be seen as tourists so much anymore, so much as travellers. And then just next to tourists, we've got the idea of a flashpacker. I'm going to give you a bit more information about that. That's another development that's quite symbolic of the main changes in this industry. So, why are people travelling? This is a general figure, okay? This is not some related to Thailand. This is the general figure. It's the bulk of it, as you can see, is for holidaying. But language learning and work experience have undergone massive increases since the last time we surveyed people. So here we can see the main reasons. What about those who visited Thailand on their main trip? Why were they here? Well, overwhelmingly was for a holiday. Interesting though, the second most popular reason giving was for volunteering. Let's hope with the campaign from the TAT that's going to change, and there's going to be a larger sector who come here for the volunteering reasons. What were their motivations though? This is a very, very interesting piece of data, because and I can say that the reasons given for visiting Thailand were very much in line with the general reasons given for travel in the first place. Just look at the top one. The idea of exploring other cultures. The idea of wanting to increase knowledge through travel. The possibilities, the third and the fourth ones always interchange when you ask this question, but the fact that it's the possibility of interacting with local people and living life as people live it in their destination. Now, these themes are very important for me because when you start to move away from the idea of, you go beyond the idea of an economic impact, and you start to look at the social impact of youth travel. Because when people give the main reasons for travelling as the idea of exploring other cultures and the possibility of mixing with local people, it really starts to demonstrate that the importance of this sector goes beyond pure money. What about the influences on destination choice? Well, the ability to get around quickly, of course, if you're trying to see a lot of places in a short space of time, infrastructure and the possibility of travelling around easily in the destination are important. Feeling safe, that's a very interesting one, but I think it's something that we would all agree with. Travelling cheaply as well, and then that having the contact with local people. These are the reasons that people gave for why they chose the destinations they go to. This is general, when they travel in general. What about booking online? Well, of course, we're all talking about the world of booking online, but so what are the role? We thought it would be interesting to find out what role, if any, the traditional walk-in travel agents still have for this sector, given the fact that most things these days can be booked from the palm of your hand. Well, it's not surprising perhaps that things like air travel, accommodation and tours can be easily booked online, because often it's very easy to through a search to quickly find the right price for you. What's interesting perhaps is the things like that require a bit more specialization, perhaps a consultation with somebody, things like insurance, work abroad programs and study abroad programs. People still very much rely on a travel agent to help them with that, especially when it comes to organising things like visas, etc. Now, does this? Hands up, who is surprised by this piece of data? Or maybe you're all just staring into space. I don't know. It's difficult to tell from up here. I found it interesting to look at this because when you look at the price factor, well, yes, it's the price that determines everything. This is when we asked young people in general what were the main reasons for booking a particular product. Yes, it was the price. But take a look at the other things. The other things, when you think about it, the other things can be filtered out. The other things can be searched for quickly, discarded, picked up. In other words, it's the user that's in control of that. Whereas, of course, it's the supplier that's, for the time being, in control of the price. Though, of course, this is something that's changing. It's interesting that while we say, yes, youth travellers are spending more, and it's not necessarily always a budget market, the issue of price is important. But we look at those other things, these days they're increasingly taken for granted by the young consumer. And wanted to just have a quick look at accommodation, just to give you an idea of what's happening in this sector. The idea of a hostel being a smelly, dirty place where you can't really get much sleep, and it's just a cheap place to put your head down and probably not even sleep for the night. Well, that is becoming undergoing a complete change. Here we can see a picture of the bar. It doesn't look like a hostel, but it actually is. It's from one of our members, the chain of generator hostels, and this is the bar in their their hostel in Dublin. They're one of the companies that are sort of leading part of this revolution, I think. We asked people where they stayed. Well, in general, yes, hostels, but hotels are up there too. Perhaps they're budget hotels, but they're hotels that are offering people what they're looking for. So this is their breakdown of where young people say that they stay. What about those that stayed in Thailand? That's interesting. The one at the top is actually the hotel. I would say that this is probably because the hotels here are still quite competitively priced. There's still quite a strong specialisation in the hotel sector, but maybe it's a signal that hostels may here need to up their game and undergo some of the revolution that's happened in other parts of the world. Look at how the people that stay in this accommodation, what about how they define themselves? Well, yes, backpackers. That was the dark blue bars are actually the most recent. So 2012, we've got a large amount of backpackers, travellers, tourists. Yes, they stay too. But more recently, well, hostels are now servicing increasing volunteers who are on their way to or coming back from a placement. And then there's this idea of the flashpacker. Now, would anybody like to offer an idea for them of what a flashpacker is? Our friend from...
it's like a tourist version of the normal backpacker, I think it's like you want the community to have at a hostel, but it's more quality or more luxury than you have in a hostel.
Yeah, that's a very good definition. Exactly that. It's an upmarket backpacker, essentially. But it's the type of person that's becoming quite symbolic of the changes that are happening in this industry. Somebody that is money rich but time poor, looking for the experiences, looking to, perhaps as a slightly older age, looking to continue to travel in the style of a young person. Of course, travel, as we know, is addictive. Why would you want to give it up? Why would you want to give up those experiences? If you can find the fantastic experiences like extreme sports online, well, you can just find and book. It doesn't really matter what age you are. So this is the kind of person we're talking about with the flashpacker. But I'm going to just touch on that as part of my conclusion. So overall, we're seeing more trips taken outside our home region. This is a general figure. This is talking about the rise in youth travel. Look at that. In just over about 6.1 trips per year in 2002, 10 trips per year on average among our people who were surveyed were taken in 2012. And this is another interesting idea. Youth travel has not just grown in the amount of people that are travelling per year and the amount of trips they're taking, the amount of places they're visiting is changing too. Southern and Northern Europe have always been popular destinations for young people, but look at where people are spreading to. We've even got Antarctica at the bottom there. People have been there. I haven't, but it'd be interesting. I live in the Netherlands. I moved there from Spain, and Netherlands is cold enough for me for the time being. But look at the rest of the way that this is spread out. The green bars showing the most recent. Every single region has experienced an increase in visitors from young people. So in line with the general trend in world tourism, youth travel is being spread more evenly around the globe. But of course, that also means that destinations are having to become more competitive. Let's just take a quick look at the destination wish list. Number 1, Rio de Janeiro. And then Tokyo, Sydney, Buenos Aires and San Francisco. Those are the top 5. Bangkok is number 23. Now this is not let's say a ranking. Let's think about that for a moment. We already know in Thailand that you have a massive amount of young visitors. But so when you look at where Bangkok sits in that list, it's actually pretty impressive given the amount of competition, the competition among destinations for attracting young people, and the fact that apart from Bangkok you also have many other wonderful destinations for young people in this country. What about spending? I'm actually just going to touch on spending only in this section. Spending too has risen. This is also a very important figure. We're looking at 2,800 euros per trip. That was on one trip. This is not per year. We asked people how much they spent on their last main trip, and this was the amount that was quoted to us. Again, people say that young people travel on a budget. I think we really need to question that assumption. So, I wanted to take the figure for the last main trip to Thailand. Spending in total, when we asked people, those people who had on their last main trip been to Thailand, 1,143 euros on the whole trip. In an average, 42 euros per day. Be interesting to see how that changes over the next few years. So in this last section of the data on From New Horizons, I wanted to get a little bit more philosophical and look at young people's attitudes towards travel. We asked people what they thought were the benefits of travel in general. This is before they've gone anywhere. First of all, it creates a thirst for more travel. It generates an appreciation of other cultures. Again, number 3 is very similar to that answer too. We asked people said that it created more self-knowledge and awareness and more tolerance of cultural differences. Just think again that this sector goes way beyond the purely economic impact. It shows that by promoting youth travel, and this is no coincidence that when we speak in forums like the UNWTO and in UNESCO, that people listen, and that the tourism ministers of this world are interested in the arguments that we put forward, because quite apart from the fact that we're breaking assumptions about the amount of money that this sector is worth, it's also about the possibilities that it gives for creating intercultural understanding and mutual tolerance among people. But we asked people what the barriers were to travel, because this is important. If this sector is going to grow, we need to be able to overcome these barriers. Crime, that's an interesting one. The fact that when we look at hostels, then one of the main things young people say that they want in a hostel is security. They bring a huge amount of expensive kit with them. They want to be able to keep it safe. Natural disasters is another one. War and political instability, terrorism and epidemics. But people give these answers, but of course, people give things like crime and natural disasters, war and political instability. But think of all the things that have happened since 2007 or 2002, and it's actually quite impressive that we give such low figures. We generally find that young people continue to travel even in times of political instability, unrest, and that's why there are certain countries which are experiencing such things that are actually going for the youth market, because they know that the youth market is resilient. You look at developed countries like the United States. We found when we looked at what young people were doing after 9/11, often they weren't so much, they didn't cancel their trip, they simply changed their plans. So there's this determination to continue travelling despite adversity in the world. What about general concerns? Because this is important for the travel and tourism sector to keep their eye on, because perhaps they can help address these or combat them through the products and services that they offer? Well, it's unsurprisingly, perhaps, if you ask people in the year 2012 what their life concerns are, it's the aspect of unemployment. Perhaps that explains why work and study abroad products are becoming more popular. Then, of course, the economic crisis is related to that. And then, of course, you can see the other main concerns that people have. It would be interesting to see how, as a sector, we can help to address those fears. So, and yeah, we just wanted to thank the sponsors who maybe this is being streamed, I hope so, and we just wanted to thank them for their help with the survey. So, all of this brings me towards the end of the presentation, and just to ask, trying to bring together what's been talked about today, trying to bring together some of the data that I've presented you with, and then we're going to ask, what's next for the industry? Well, we're pleased to say that youth travel is growing and fast. That's why we expect it to reach 300 million international arrivals by 2020. I said, youth travel is addictive. People find it hard to give up. It generates a thirst for more travel. And you know, if I can tell you that apart from the fact that people are also addressing it as, people think of it as a right rather than a luxury, it's becoming more acceptable to people to let parents to let their children travel before they settle down. There's whole reasons why this sector is going to continue growing. We look at demographics. Now, this perhaps in the developed world, this is a process that is definitely underway. The fact that young people, when they grow up, especially you look at the role of women, who are starting to question the traditional model of growing up, having children, settling down, and maybe getting a job and then retiring. That whole life process is being thrown into question by all sorts of different factors like globalization and family expectations. And this means that generally young people are more interested in being able to travel or mix their work and their travel constantly. When we asked young people about what the effects of the crisis, they often said that they wanted to mix work and travel as they went through life. Then finally, just on that point at the bottom there, it's interesting that more and more parents, quite apart from young students, are seeing travel therefore as an investment. Companies, when they recruit, and as was one of the conclusions at the end of the panel before, are interested in having young people who are globally aware, who can speak languages, and that's where travel comes in as part of the preparation for that. So, travel, as we can see, is perhaps less of an age bracket, a strict age bracket saying, no, we only do 18 to 35. Well, no, this is changing. So perhaps, therefore, it's more of a state of mind. You're young at heart. So young people are going to have to get used to older people coming and staying in their hostels, for example. We just talked about the rise of the flash packer, somebody who is money rich, time poor, looking for the same experiences but continuing to travel and experience young people's travel products. And this is an interesting idea, the idea that when we're talking about luxury hotels, we're talking about the experiences that people are looking for. Well, these days people may fly with a budget airline and spend a small amount on their travel, but will be interested in splashing out on a paragliding course or some extreme sports, or to stay in a luxury boutique hotel, or to do the opposite, fly first class and stay in a budget hotel. The youth market is continually putting into question the traditional models in this market, and that's why I wanted it to be the focus of the end of the sessions today. And then here's the big subject that was dealt with very well in the panel this morning, the idea that life is being lived online at every single stage of the visitor journey. You looked at the planning, you look at the dreaming, the planning, booking, and then of course the visiting, the experiencing, the sharing. Every single thing is constantly being uploaded, shared with friends and family around the globe. This is just one final point of reflection that I when looking at this data, something that made me think was maybe this is the reason why events are becoming more important as a focus for youth travel, because they bring the social and the virtual and the physical worlds together. They help people to experience things together at the same time, and this is something that is not going to go away. So, on that note, I would just like to say, when we talk about everything being shared online and everything being in the palm of your hand, why don't you put down your smartphones and go outside, experience in the world, go and talk to people, because you'll learn a lot more than a smartphone can tell you. So I'd like to thank you all very much and wish you all the very best for the rest of the session.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Peter Jordan. And please remain on stage. And may I now invite Professor Perry Hobson to present the gifts as appreciation.
With Australia in the background, look at that. Should I come down here or? Yeah.
Yes, thank you very much. Please be seated. And may I ask for your help in filling in the evaluation form that is placed on your seat, and please give it to our volunteer. So it comes to an end of today's forum, and allow me to officially conclude the Prater Youth Forum 2013. It is a very fruitful and successful one. I would like to send my sincere gratitude to the host, to our special guests, moderator, and of course delegates. That's you. So could you please give another round of applause to yourself?